how to build your dream massage therapy team. For anyone watching that is not familiar with ClinicSense and is intrigued to try it, here is the deal. ClinicSense is your all-in-one practice management solution, and it is their mission to help you run and grow a successful business. What makes ClinicSense unique is how easy it is to use and all the tools and features available to simplify running your business. And on top of that, it has incredibly fast and friendly customer support. They get back to you within minutes, I swear. So a huge shout out to our customer support team. With ClinicSense, your charting is easy, fast, customizable, and HIPAA and PAPITA compliant. Scheduling is simple for both you and your clients. Invoicing, payments, and reporting tools help you feel confident about your finances. And then, of course, the marketing tools help you build and maintain a really strong relationship with your clients. This increases your client retention and manages your online business reputation. If you are not a customer, once again, and you are intrigued, we do have a 14-day free trial. Again, give me a shout in the comments and I'll help you get signed up. Just a quick look at our agenda. We'll go through 3 ways to grow your team, how to run an intentional practice, how to find awesome talent, management and learning styles, and then of course we'll have our Q&A, but again, pop any questions into the comment section throughout. And then I have the pleasure of introducing our guest, Elicia. She is a business coach and mentor to hundreds of massage therapists, and she's sharing tactics she's used to create her own business success over the last 24 years. I'll leave the screen up for us, but I think I'll give it up to her to tell us a little bit more about her experience. And thank you so much for joining, Elicia.
Thank you so much, Nicole. It's lovely to be here today. So I've been massaging for 24 years now. It's crazy. It's like, that's like a lot. That's more than half of my life. And I started out just having no clue what I was doing. I just wanted to help people. And so as I built my kind of clinical experience and decided one day, all right, I'm going to hire, this will be great. I'll hire a team member. Wonderful. And it didn't go so well. And so I had to learn so much of what I'll share today because of the mistakes I made. I mean, my first therapist that I hired had one person working, I had one client after 12 months. So there was a lot of things I really had to learn from that grassroots level and take a long time and kind of make heaps of mistakes and learn from them. So yeah, really excited to be here today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And you're joining from the States today. I know from, I think whoever watched your intro video into the group, you are Australian, but you're joining us from the States from the conference today, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're in Tampa, Florida for the AMTA conference, attending it with my business partner and really excited. I'm really stoked because it's 2 a.m. at home. So I'm thrilled that we get to chat today at a very sensible time.
Yes, yes, me too. And I'm glad that you have adjusted because 2 a.m. would have been a struggle.
Yes.
All right, so why don't we jump straight into it? The first point on our agenda is 3 ways to grow your team. And you mentioned there are a few ways and you can find the best way that works for you and your clinic. So why don't you tell us a bit more about that?
Look, I think being able to hire someone, most of the people that we work with when we're working with therapists who are looking to hire, they often really want to share the passion that they have. Yeah, like they're really passionate about, they know how to do this, they know how to treat people, and it's like something's come up, they're just ready for extra level of growth and new things. And I think that is often something that people don't talk about. Yeah, when they're ready to hire, when they're looking for those new people, it's like, you know what, share with someone what exciting things are, like what's the heartbeat behind what you have. And I think that when we look at that intentional culture, being able to be really intentional with the way that we are hiring and actually share the kind of excitement and enthusiasm of, I want to take, sometimes a baby therapist or someone who doesn't have as much experience as myself and bring them in. And I want to teach them what I know because I've learned so much over the last however many years you've been in the industry. And I think that that's something that really helps to begins an initiation process of that intentional culture that creates being an employer of choice.
Amazing. Is that something you feel like you've learned in your experience as an employee yourself?
Yes, definitely. I ran my massage clinic my massage business out of my lounge room to start with. And then I moved into being into a chiropractic clinic. And it was one of those situations where it's like, I don't know if I was an employee, contractor,
Oh
if I
yeah.
was interim, there was no written contracts. It was all like, oh, who owns the clients at the end of the day? What happens when you're like, oh, it was that nightmare.
Yeah.
And however, I learned so much about what it was like to have great leadership team and what it was like to have not such a great leadership team. It was a husband and wife team, and one of them was brilliant in communication, one of them not so great in communication. I also worked at day spas and just learnt so much about what is great management and what is not great management, and what did I enjoy and what did I didn't enjoy, and what brought the best out in me and what didn't bring the best out. And I think that's really important to learn as part of your bringing on board people skills.
Yeah. And as far as the differences between if someone's trying to find the best model for their business, I know you mentioned, renting out a room, or if you want to subcontract, or if you want to get a whole team, how do you decide what's the best fit?
That's a great question. It really comes down to the level of control that you want. I'm just to be really clear, I'm not a HR expert. I just have an enormous amount of experience. Yeah, just so we're really clear. So there's 3 ways to grow your team. You can rent out a room. So basically, you charge per day or per week, and someone comes in, they run their own business from your space, and they provide everything in terms of marketing, whoever they see is retained in their database, all that kind of stuff. It's just literally they are saying, I want this 4 walls. That's what I'm going to rent out, and I'm going to run my business in it. Then you've got subcontracting, and subcontracting is technically where somebody would bring their own tools. So they would provide their own linen, oils, marketing, things like that. And they would do that on behalf of their business, and they would work and subcontract for a clinic. And then you've got employment. And employment, there are some federal and state requirements. Not that, like I said, I'm not an expert on these things, but I understand and have an awareness around them. And it does come down to your level of control. Because as an employee, you can ask somebody to do things between clients. So you can ask them to do some laundry. You can ask them to help you with your marketing. You can ask them to do some rebooking or call clients you haven't seen in a while. Like, you can actually ask them to do more things than you can as a subcontractor, because technically they're meant to be able to run their own business. And the example we'd use is if you were building a house and you had a contractor come and do the plumbing. As the person who is building the house, as the builder that's building it, they don't care if it's Stephen or Peter or Dave, or I don't know what your tradie names are, but in Australia, a contractor is called a tradie. We shorten everything and add E to the end of it. So you don't care which tradie comes. But obviously in a service-based business, technically they can replace themselves. And that's a little odd. It doesn't happen, but technically they can. And so a lot of people are like, oh, well, I was a subcontractor, so that's how I'll hire. And what we tend to say is, learn what is, like, you really need to learn what does that mean in terms of the requirements and obligations that you have in growing your team, but also what you can expect of them. And there's a lot of, there's a big list and criteria for both, and I won't necessarily go into those today, but hopefully that gives you a bit of a picture of the 3 different ways that you can hire.
What do you think people are assuming about certain business models? Are there any misconceptions that you've come across?
Loads of misconceptions. And I think if we're looking at that intentional culture, be really clear with what you're offering. Are you offering a room rental? And what are your obligations? What are your not obligations? What are you prepared to say yes to? What are you prepared to say no to? And it's the same if you're going to have subcontractors come in. Be really clear with, like, there is absolutely reason to have subcontractors. Subcontractors will lower the risk for you, because obviously if they don't work, they don't get paid. So often that is where people go, oh, that will be easy, I'll do that. Whereas there are lots of ways to actually employ therapists that isn't as possibly onerous or scary when you know what you're doing. When you know what requirements, the state and federal requirements that you have, and making sure that you're ensuring that you're doing them. Often therapists that are looking for work are also looking for a different level of risk or buy-in for themselves as well. So some people, like, as a business owner, we maybe wouldn't want to work for some sort of minimum wage, because it's like, okay, I know how much I can earn when I go and work for myself. However, where are the unicorns in this? Because we are driven by different things. And often people who are looking for an employment situation want the consistency of a regular paycheck, knowing that every Thursday they're going to get money in their bank, regardless of how many hours they work. Like some people really like that certainty and will chase it, especially when you're not kind of massaging their hands into bloody stumps, because you're actually care of them. They're not going to walk away from it going, oh, I had to see
Oh
um,
no.
because if you are a passionate therapist who loves to actually share and mentor the people that work with you, then you're going to teach them safe and appropriate boundaries. How many clients would they like to be seeing each week, and make sure that it's financially profitable for yourself, but also that you're going to have a staff member with you for a long time. And I think that that's understanding what the three are and being really clear on what it is, not just assuming I'll just do that because it's easier, because often it's not. And I think having that intentionality. I heard one of my massage clients once said to me, when he was teaching his daughter to drive, what he said to her was, every time you get in the car, you're going to make thousands of decisions. Make sure they're good ones every time. And I think it's similar with business. We have to make thousands of decisions every day, every single week in our business. So make sure they're really great decisions and be really educated well before you jump into hiring. And I think that makes all the difference, because then you know what you're willing to do, what you have to do, and what's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. If someone isn't sure where to start, what is the, I don't know if this is even applies, but is there a safest option or an easiest option?
Probably just renting a room out. It's very black and it's like, basically you're going to run your thing in there. Great. And you're going to pay me money for that privilege. Tick. And I mean, again, one of my beautiful coaching clients once said that and make sure it's written down. But if you ever have to pull the contract out, probably the relationship is over. This is clearly what we're stating. This is what we're doing. We've both signed it. It goes into a drawer, and hopefully it never needs to come out, because usually if it's coming out and you're like section 2, but you're
yes.
There's no relationship there now.
Yeah. I guess this takes us quite nicely into running your intentional practice. And where do you even start?
I think it is so important to know what it is that you stand for. And, I think a lot of people talk about how, knowing your values and knowing your mission and what you do and that sort of stuff. However, I think in today's culture, particularly with our younger generation, they want to know what a business stands for. I mean, even when we look at Instagram, people will follow brands before they'll purchase them, particularly younger people. And knowing what it is that we stand for it's a process to go through, because 96% of what we do is unconscious. We're not thinking beat heart, it just happens. Because so much of our patterns of behavior happen just unconsciously. So discovering our values is not so much looking for that unicorn to go, what on earth are they? It's actually just discovering, what are the things that really, when XYZ happens in my business or in my clinic or through the day, great day, love that. What's getting up my nose? What kind of irks me and annoys me when that happens? Because they're the two ways that you can know what your values actually already are, but you might not have actually languaged them. And so when I look at my business, there's a timeline of before understanding my values and after understanding my values. And before understanding my values, there was a lot of hit and miss guessing. And I mean, I'm a therapist, okay? Like I like people to like me. And especially back then, I was I'm a recovering people pleaser. So for me, when a staff member didn't want to do something or pushed back against something without knowing my values, it was really hard to have any influence, because it was like, oh no, okay, yeah, I'll just do what they want, because but that did not create an intentional culture, and it did create a really great positive intentional working culture either, because the staff was saying, well, what they wanted was what happened, and then I tried to kind of adapt my behavior to that, which is not intentional. It's kind of like the tail is wagging the dog as opposed to the other way around. Whereas when I did some work to discover what are the business values, and it wasn't just Leash came up with these ideas. At the time, I had 3 beautiful team members working with me, and we talked to them, and I'm like, why are we the biggest clinic in our area? There's about 13,000 people in Ocean Grove, where I'm from. And there were 30 other massage clinics within a 2.5-mile radius. So this is like a really densely, heavily populated area. And at that time, we were seeing 75 to 80 clients per week. We were the most expensive clinic in the area. We had an 85% rebooking rate across the team. I'm like, so what are we doing well that we don't even know? And so actually the team helped me to create our mission and our values, because it was more just eliciting what was already happening or creating the recipe for why we were already doing great things. And I think that because I didn't have that and then create a team, I had a team and we had to do that. I think by bringing them in on that process, they had way more buy-in than if, Elicia Crook, I've had a really good idea, jump in, hey guys, this is our values now. And they're, that it doesn't, they're not brought along for the ride in that way. So I think that being able to say, this is what I stand for. Well, then when someone came and challenged something, so like, hey, I really don't like we put our rates up, and they didn't like that. They were like, they were really against it and didn't really like it. I'm like, well, actually, one of our values is to raise the professional standard of massage. And we can't do that if there's no money in the account. Yeah, like if I can't pay people, if I can't pay the rent, we're not raising the standard, and we're not living out that value of excellence either. So what it meant was that if we had challenges or people weren't meeting KPIs, that I had the opportunity to say, well, how does that live in alignment with this value? And that it just changed the game. And it meant I didn't have to be a people pleaser, because it wasn't just I've had this really good idea and you should do it. It was like, well, we've agreed on this set of values. So how can we together look at this out there and say, right, how do we get in alignment with that value? And it started to really change the culture. And it was like, it made people think, and they were more invested. They actually, they were more invested in what we were doing.
That's such an interesting, and sounds like I wish I knew this 10 years ago, to be honest. It's such a good way to not people please, because I'm a recovering people pleaser myself, and to have those values to fall back on, that they signed up for, that they agree with, that they feel like they align with, that's amazing. Would you do that in onboarding? Is that something you would set aside time for? Hey, these are our values.
Yes, that was very much the first thing that we did. So on their first day, they would come in, we'd go through I had a checklist of what I would, what I was going to teach them on their first day. And we would always start with mission, vision, and values. So before we got to, here's a key, here's how to get in, here's the evacuation plan, here's our systems and all that. Before we got to any of that, it was always starting with that mission, vision, and values. Absolutely.
And I want to ask also about creating that culture and making sure that culture stays when you bring on a new hire. Maybe it doesn't go so well and they don't really align. How do you keep that culture and keep your values strong?
I think, first of all, being intentional helps. And the way I describe it, it's a little bit in your face, but maybe it's an Australian term, I'm not sure, but you wouldn't wear bikinis to church. And no one has to say, not appropriate. Yeah, I mean, sure, some churches maybe you can, but you wouldn't wear bikinis to church. And the reason is because the culture is not okay. You just know that that's not an appropriate thing to do. When you're really clear, not only are you clear on your values, but you communicate them effectively, and they're up on the wall. And it's not just every bank in the world has integrity as one of their, values. Yeah. That's not the kind of values I'm talking about. I'm talking about values that you have crafted really intentionally and beautifully. And you're like, I'm proud of these, and so what happens when somebody steps in who's not a cultural fit is it becomes really obvious, because they're sticking out. It's like they're trying, and you can see they'll try and drag but blah 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 blah. This is how it's written down, but this is how we really do it. No, that's actually not okay, because the reason that we do it this way is because X, Y, Z. It helps us align to this, and when it's it's a continual cycle, it's much easier to call out behavior, and often they will self-select, because it's just oh, that doesn't work here.
Yeah.
Like, just literally, it just isn't flying because it's not how we roll. We don't have time for that kind of behavior. So you either change or move on.
Yeah.
I guess that sounds harsh, but it's the truth, because if you have a therapist, maybe you have a therapist who's really good with their clients, but they're not culturally working in to your, like, as a team in your practice. It's a tough call. And yet what I'll say from my own experience of that exact thing is that when we allow behavior that's not in alignment with our values, we're actually saying to the rest of the team, it's completely okay to behave like that. And it can be really tough to make a call to say, you know what, and I guess this leads into management as well, but sometimes you've got to make that tough call to go, what else is this allowing in my business by allowing this behavior and just kind of ignoring it, or putting it under the rug, or allowing it because we don't want to rock the boat. I think it's really important to be really, really honest sometimes with the team members that you have, and just check, like, and the great question to ask yourself is, if this person left and came back, would you hire them again? And if the answer is no, and that's telling. Yeah, that's telling.
You have your answer. That's so good. How would you advise someone who feels like they're in a position where they feel like they're micromanaging when actually it's just not the right fit?
Yeah. Well, look, I think it comes down to, first of all, knowing what that mission is and those values, and then having systems that back that up. So I believe that it's important to give people the absolute best opportunity to be able to learn how you want things done. Yeah, like I was really, really fussy about the way that my staff did our towels. Yeah, because I worked at a day spa, so I would roll on a Wednesday, I would roll 300 bath towels.
Yeah.
So I like them to look nice. Yeah, otherwise I'm going to watch these things while I'm massaging, doing relaxation massage. Oh, that towel's not right. Like when I came to, I had a very, some people would say fussy, I would say high standard. Like it's semantic of how we would roll towels. And so I was really clear with my team that we would do towel rolling training. Yeah, like you've got to do it like this. You've got to pull them back a little bit, traction them, and then roll them. And you should be able to stack them quite high if they're rolled properly. And they should be, the edge of the towel is to the back of the wall. Yeah, okay. Now, some of you listening will be like, yes, she gets me. And other people are going, no, seriously, lady, you are like, oh, that's crazy. So for me, when it came, because that kind of stuff can get really micromanaging. Like, how do you actually call that out? And so part of, I think one of the mistakes that therapists make when they're hiring is they ignore behavior for a long time, then get really annoyed after like 6 months and go full aggressive mode. And so I think it's actually better to swap that round. And it's almost like, don't be afraid to almost micromanage in the first month. Actually do lots of hand-holding. Point out when they do things well. Point out when it's not in alignment. Because if you're giving them that encouragement and that feedback, and you're also giving them the feedback of that's not right, often by the time they get to that first month, you don't have to keep telling them the things. And if you do, then that might be really highlighting of that perhaps they're not a cultural fit. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake I see people make, is that they will ignore behavior and then, and it's like, you know what, just flip that round. It's almost like, don't be afraid to communicate a lot in that first month, because it will really set the culture of, this is how we do it here. This is how we do it here. This is how we do it here. Oh, done it somewhere else differently. Great, but this is how we do it here. Yeah, this is what it means to have a clinic of excellence, or to, I think, and I think that will swap that micromanaging around.
That's great advice. I think it's also good for the hired to find out if it's a good fit for them. Like, it has to be, this is a two-way relationship.
And if you don't care about the way the towels are done, that's fine. But
I was
Yeah.
like that with my towel, so you definitely speaking to me. I got it. I couldn't concentrate on a massage. I'm like, all I'm thinking about is that towel that's out of place.
No, it's my eyes twitching.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Well, since we're talking about finding talent, let's talk about finding the right fit for your team. Let's start at the beginning with your hiring process. Where do you start with trying to find the right fit?
Yeah. So I think being able to communicate the passion that you have, and this comes down to marketing, which I love, and marketing is super fun, and marketing is all about communication. And what we tend to do is our first draft of most ads are, you need to be this and this and this and this, and we want this, and you must be this and this and this and this and this, and unless you perform 3 miracles, don't apply. And what I tend to say is lead with your heart, not your words. So share the passion that you have. If you're a values-based business, talk to the values first. And if you are going to be the kind of person that wants to create an imprint, if you want to mentor someone, if you really want to share the experience and wisdom that you have, put that at the top of your ad. You're like, actually share that I have a passion for helping therapists grow. Oh, wow, that's because that instantly says something different. So, and then, yeah, criteria, but I wouldn't put too much criteria in your ad. Put that on a landing page, or put that on your website, or put that somewhere where they can see, because obviously you want to make sure you're not just getting randos. Like, you want to make sure they're really, you want a therapist, they've got to be qualified, that kind of stuff. And I think that's the first thing that I would say. And normally, almost every person that I work with that is hiring someone, they send me their first draft of their ad, and I just take the stuff that they put at the bottom, because that's when they finally got a bit fluffier and a bit nicer, and we just put that at the top. Oh, okay, let's all this stuff here. That's great. That can be in a job description. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Put that all over there. And so the person is really just getting the heartbeat of who you are. Have a lovely photo of yourself. If you've got other team members, put a photo of your team. If you've got a clinic that looks lovely, use photos of the clinic. If you think of like everything has to be corporate and very fancy, we're just not. Yeah, like we're massage therapists. Okay, that's just how we roll. We're much more friendly, and I can say it because I'm a therapist. We're a bit fluffy. Like, it's okay to put that out there. We can be. The other thing I would say is, if you don't want to have the same clinic that everyone else has, hire people in the way that other people aren't doing. And so one of the ways that we have hired many people in our clinic and also in our current business is that we will do a Facebook Live in community group and have like an apply here button, and it goes to a form and goes through the website and other stuff. But what I found is that people who listen to that and look at that are like, oh, that's a really different way to hire someone. Like, really? You're, oh, okay. You're not, this is like putting it on Seek or Craigslist, or, this is really, really different. Not to say that we don't use, actual employment platforms as well. But if you're going to do something, like if you're not the usual clinic down the road or somewhere else, be different, display and highlight that. Like, take a video of yourself through your clinic saying, hey, we're hiring. This is the space. What do you think? We'd really love to see you. These are the values of the business. This is what we stand for. This is who we're looking for. And what that does is gives people an experience of who you are. And that's a little bit like marketing for massage businesses, that if we often say that you want people to get what you do before they come in. So if you are quite unique in the way that you treat, get them to know that, because you don't want them to come in for a pregnancy massage if you're a high-end sports therapist, you want to make sure they get what you're doing. And I say the same when you're hiring, like, actually talk to that person. It's almost like having a niche, but for your team. Yeah, so it's like you have a niche for your business, or you might have niches for your business. How do you get that person and go, this is who I'm looking for. I want a therapist that does this and this and is like this and has this kind of temperament, this sort of personality. Speak to that, and you'll often attract them in. And again, that starts with that intentionality, doing a little bit of groundwork first to go, okay, I definitely want an employee. I want them to be, want to have had a little bit of experience, or they could be fresh out. Like, that's fine. This is who I'm looking for. And you can then speak to that and speak to the things that kind of person might like. And we've found some really great team members that way, because it's not your usual way to do business. And honestly, the company that we run we're not usual. We are a little bit of a different kind of company. And so we found that a really interesting and fun. And it was just literally one day I just woke up and I went, oh, I'll do a live. We'll just see if anyone around wants it. And it worked so well that I was like, yeah, that's intentional. Yeah, we'll keep doing that.
I meant to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It speaks a lot for your, like, following what you really want to do and what you really are. You're following your values. So you trusting your instinct more and attracting people that align with all that. So that's really great advice. I was going to actually ask how else you're finding people apart from the lives. It's very cool. Is there anything else you're doing, or any other tips you can give to people?
Look, Facebook community groups. So especially if you were in, if you're looking for an admin person, your local community groups can be really great. But if you're looking for therapists, find therapist groups in your area and just speak to them. You can even put your ad in it. I mean, check the rules. Make sure, don't be that person. Check the rules that you are and are not allowed to post. But again, it can be it's like massage therapists are always looking on your employment platforms. Just simply because we're not a corporate bunch. So doing that, going to local colleges, and asking them, do you have anyone? Going into the student clinics and meeting people is a great way. And I have done that. I actually worked in the TAFE system in Australia, and that was one of the ways that I found great team members, was to actually work as a teacher and be like, all right, this person is a great cultural fit. This person's a great cultural fit. And again, it was actually one of the students that I looked at one day. I went, you're my niche. Oh, of staff. Some of this stuff that I'm doing, it happened because I just literally saw it in front of me and it kind of smacked me about the head. And I'm like, that's a really good idea. But you don't have to go and get a teaching qualification, go and teach at a college for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just go and actually, if they've got a student clinic, go and find them out and or create a relationship with their teachers as well, to be like, is there anyone in here, anyone in this class that you'd hire? Anyone you recommend? And that can be, some great connections. And if you've got team already, ask them. I think there's some ways that I have found hiring to be really effective.
Amazing. And what about in the hiring process or looking for people? Are there things that you've seen when you've mentored or maybe you've gone through it yourself, common mistakes that people do, or things that they can maybe avoid that we've all gotten into the habit of doing? Any common missteps that people make?
I think two things to do that really help avoid mistakes. Number one is to get them in for a trial. So when you interview over the phone, if you think that they're going to be all right, I would set aside a few days when I was hiring for a team, and I would tell them up front, it's going to be it's an hour and a half interview. And so the first 45 minutes is we're going to have a chat. If that works, then I'd love you to give me a half an hour massage. And I've got somebody in my clinic, so either one of my other team or a client who was really good at giving feedback. And I would tell them up front that's what I wanted. Now, part of my story is that I have scoliosis. So I had major back surgery at 15, and I've got ribs and discs removed, and I've got metabolic side of my spine. So for me, it was kind of fun because I'd be like, okay, so we do the interview, and then half an hour interview, that's right, and then half an hour for each of the massages. So I'd be like, okay, great. So now I'm going to hand over to you and be like, here's everything. Do you need anything else? There's oils there and there's towels are there. Okay, great. I'm like, any other questions? I'd be like, no, I'll just leave you undressed. I'm like, if you're not going to ask me questions, if you're not going to ask about a history, this is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
So get undressed, and I would get undressed, and they walk back in and be like,
yeah.
Keep going on. There's a few scars. But it was actually really good because how do you respond to that? And that. So in some ways, that kind of chaos that I was accidentally throwing them into was actually a really good thing to see how did they handle that. And some of them would actually stop and say, okay, is there anything else I need to know? And other people wouldn't. And, I remember anything from, because then I could feel what their treatment felt like as well. Were they caring? Were they confident? Were they shaking? Were their hands sweaty? Was that nerves? But you can tell as a therapist someone's got you just feel it instantly when someone has that gift. And I remember one lady saying to me, oh yeah, that feels really tight. What's that called again? Oh, you trap. Yeah, that feels really tight. And I'm like,
oh no.
Probably not the language
Might
that
not work out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. We'll wrap up. And then having them treat the other person, and then that was really helpful as well, especially if you've got a or a staff member, or actually my mum was often a really good category because she was very good at being or she is very good at articulating, this feels really good, I don't like that, I really enjoyed that, I really love the way that you did this. Find someone who can articulate that. So I think that is a way when you interview like that, you're really getting a sense of not just what they're saying, but what they're feeling like. And obviously you're hiring them as a therapist. Remembering that we can, like when we hire on culture, we're looking for their personality, their temperament, their style. We can train other things. So that, that's kind of what I was looking for. The other thing I would say is when you're interviewing them, ask them for specific things. So one of our sneaky things that we did when we hired our admin was fill in this form, like to apply to fill in a form. But then we would put a note at the end that said, can you please email me your resume with the subject line, I think I'm the one. Now, that is very attention to detail kind of behavior. But if I've got an admin, I want them having attention to detail. So if you filled in the form, but you didn't email me with that subject line specifically, I'm sorry, but you don't pay attention to detail. So part of that was actually getting people to hire in a way, like getting them to behave in the hiring process, how you want them to hire at the end of it. So sort of starting with the end in mind. And it's the same with staff. Like with therapists, a little bit different because I don't know that that's a relevant skill for me personally as an employer. That wouldn't be a relevant skill for a therapist. But what I would ask them is, can you tell me a specific time where you had to resolve something that was challenging in a workplace environment? So that was one question. The other question I used to ask was around gift vouchers. So for us, a lot of gift vouchers this is very random, but this was quite oddly specific and it helped me know what this person was going to be like. So gift vouchers for us were often sold to our clients would buy them for their family and friends. Yeah. So I would say to them, in this situation, somebody has called and their gift voucher ran out a week ago. What was your instincts to do? Like, not necessarily what you think I want you to do, but I'd love to know, how would you like to handle it? And they were like, because what I was actually looking for was, I'd probably say, okay, and book them in and then call you and check it's okay. Totally fine. Because you know what? That's great customer service, in my mind. If it's 3 years out of date, it's a whole different conversation. But this is like, just how much of the rules are you willing to follow? How much customer service are you willing to go around? Will you check in with your boss around whatever decision you've made? Because they're going to be faced with those situations all the time. And so that was a great question to ask around gift vouchers and how they'd handle certain situations that were a little bit askew, but also that we knew this stuff happens. Yeah. So there were some questions that I found really helpful in the hiring process that elicited the kind of behavior and qualities that I wanted, because I wanted someone that was really customer-centric focused. And the response to that told me whether they were really rules bound, which wasn't going to be helpful for us, or if they were like, well, I want to check with you, but really, I'd really want to just give it them the voucher because it's only a week. And yes, that's
yeah. And the thing is, it probably isn't right or wrong. It's what would you really do? And then we'll figure out if you're a good fit for here.
Correct.
So that's right. Strategy is brilliant. Setting the intention and the culture right from the start. What do you do if you're on the fence? You're still not sure after that 1.5 to 2 hour interview. What would you do?
What was it that made you not sure? Can I ask? I know that's
I can't even. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think now. It was a while ago. I can't even remember. But I remember thinking, oh, I'm not sure. Like, I like them, but I don't know if it's going to work out. I can't remember the real detail now. And I did end up hiring in the end, and they were great in the end. So I think for me, the thing I remembered was trusting my gut.
Yeah.
Is there anything like tangible someone can go on if they're on the fence? Would you recommend a second interview?
Possibly a second interview, but I think that's where that's like, you're kind of getting a second interview by having the other person give them a massage and getting their feedback. I really enjoyed it when they did this. I felt very comfortable. That's what I was always looking for. How comfortable did you feel with them? Did you like the way that they it's not so much the treatment, honestly, the treatment
Mm.
can be trained. It's the way that you go about it. How's that pressure? Do you need me to check in? Or that's feeling really tight. What does that feel like to you? Like those kinds of things to me were way more important. Our communication during the treatment was more important to me than the actual treatment itself. So that's probably what I would fall back to. And you can always do a probation period. Yeah. And you should always do a probation period. Up to 3 months is a great time. And especially if you've got your systems in place to be able to hire someone quickly, get them up to scratch quickly, get them trained quickly, get them booked quickly, get them rebooked quickly, then you know that hiring, there's a lot less risk in that. If it's your first one, maybe get a second interview. And I also know that it's kind of okay to, like, when you make pancakes, the first one's a bit dodge. Yeah,
First
like
one's
that.
never right.
I think it's the same with hiring. It's like, get it over and just hire the wrong person first, get it out of your system, and then know what you can learn from it.
And you'll learn through it as well. You'll learn all of the things we've been talking
Always.
about.
Yeah.
As far as other systems to have in place when you're hiring someone, what else do you have? Do you have like things that you always do every time? What kind of systems do you have to make sure the same culture is built with every employee?
Yeah. Well, I sat down and wrote down like a checklist for myself because I was hiring quite a lot. There was one time where I hired 5 staff members in the period of like a few weeks. And I just to be like, where am I at with who? And oh my gosh, I could not just go on the fly. So I actually created, and I've still got it in my garage. It's like a new staff member hiring pack. That had everything in it. That meant I could photocopy all the pieces of paper. I mean, nowadays you can do it electronically. That makes life a lot easier. But remember, it was a long time ago. I've been doing this a long while. So I had all the bits and pieces that I needed were actually in a folder that was labeled, new staff hire. And then I got my admin to photocopy a couple of them. So I just had them in the drawer so that if someone dropped out and I had to hire, I had the opportunity to just pull that out and off I went. And so for actually onboarding and hiring, that was really helpful. And then I had like a, day one onboarding checklist. Then I had a 30-day checklist, I had a 60-day checklist and a 90-day checklist of where they should be at. So that gave me the criteria of what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting them to rebook every one of their clients in the first week. I was expecting them to have a minimum 75% rebooking rate by the end of the first month because of the training that we would do. So like for me, it's like, I want to have high standards, but I don't want them to be ridiculous and not feel like it's attainable. And so I think having some timelines for yourself of knowing I want them to be doing this by then, I want them to be doing this by then, I expect them to be doing that by then. It also means that you're not expecting everything today, and it's okay for that to take time. Yes, yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's amazing. The systems in place always help. It's just nice to fall back on them. Do you have, out of curiosity, what are the things that you felt like, or do you feel like are trainable, and what are your non-negotiables?
Okay. Things that I think are trainable is like being able to communicate effectively, knowing what that looks like, sounds like, and feels like, and actually helping them learn that. I think you can train skill. These are the things that I've done in my practice that have worked really well on clients. These are the modalities. We would have training days where I would get, we had an osteopath and a naturopath and a life coach renting a room out of the clinic. And I would get them in to train around, gut health or hormones or neck or showing their favorite techniques. And I think all of that is trainable. Not negotiables for me was just customer-centered care and being a people person. That was really important for me. And it's still important for me that people are that had to be paramount, I think. And because that was the kind of clinic that I had, and that was the kind of clinic that I wanted, and it kind of perpetuated that kind of culture.
Yeah, I love that. You find out what's most important and the rest follows.
Yeah.
I think let's move on to management styles. I think you could probably have a whole webinar on itself about management styles. But what would you say are the types of management styles? How important is it to know yours? Can you figure it out on the job? What are your thoughts?
Management styles, I think, is really important. I think unchecked and not intentional, we do tend to micromanage or ignore everything and then micromanage or blow up, etc. So learning how to actually manage your team well is important. Often looking at past experiences of when we've received management
Mm.
and learning what came up for us. Because if you've had a really aggressive or bossy style manager that you hated, we tend to then flip into, okay, it's fine, just anything goes. And so it's like kind of doing a little bit of work around that so that that's not what you're avoiding. But I think being clear is kind. Brene Brown talks about that. Clear is kind. And that transposes to systems and what's okay and what's not okay. Clear is kind. So be really clear. When your management style should be really clear. Great book called The 1 Minute Manager by someone whose name I can't remember, but you can look it up. It's great. It's a really small book, and I found it really helpful because one of the things he talked about was catch people doing something right and tell them. I noticed that you interacted with that client really well. I love the conversation you had at the end of the treatment. Well done. I noticed that you put all the files away at the end of the day. Really appreciate that. Well done. I've noticed that what you've been writing in your client history notes is really helpful. It's super detailed and I love it. Well done. I've noticed that the towels are looking amazing. Well done. Just find those things and call it out, because often we ignore those. We don't even mention them. Like, well, they should be doing that. Yeah, they should be, but they don't know that that's normal yet. So find what they're doing well and point it out, because then when you have to find something they're not doing well and point that out, you kind of banked a bunch of brownie points. It makes it much easier, and you've got a huge level of respect in the room, because you're not just like, oh, you didn't do that right. Oh, you didn't do it. And then they're like, but I was here 10 minutes early. I'm so sorry that I was 3 minutes late today. Like, oh my gosh. It's like, find what they're doing well and tell them. I think that can really help as well. Yeah.
I think that goes also quite nicely into trying to strike a balance between addressing the issues and also being supportive, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We used to have a saying in our clinic that it was like, as a person, I have your back and I care about you. As a business, you leave your stuff at the door and you come to work and serve your clients, which was a way of kind of navigating how do you get people to show up and do their best work in the treatment room while still having a kind and open conversation, because maybe they've had a really rough time at the moment. So in that, it's like the expectation is that you're going to come to work and you're going to perform your best, regardless of what's happened. We're all busy. We've all had stuff go on in the day. And part of it is we've got to leave that there, park it. And if you are struggling, come and chat to me and I'm happy to talk to you, but not at the expense of doing your job. I think that's really that's important to be able to learn how to do that. And I think it is a bit of a learned skill to be able to navigate that. Yeah.
You can make that goal for yourself, I guess, as well as a manager, to learn your own management style. Do you have any like little milestones for yourself in management? I want my team to be here. I want myself to do this. Do you do that for yourself as well as for your hires?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm a fairly aware person. So I'm mindful of how my own behavior can play out in my team. And I think that's really important, because it then, if someone comes to you with feedback, if a staff member comes to you with feedback, you can take it on board, because it's like, and I would always say to my team, I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. I may not agree with it. I might not action it. Might actually do anything about it. However, when you're open to that feedback, your team knows it. And then I'd be like, and I also would never be like, yes, we can implement that today. I'd always give myself time and space. And I would say that to them, if you notice things, especially when they're new, ask new people stuff about your clinic, because they're not seeing it from your eyes of, I've been doing this for 20 years. They're actually seeing with you. Talk to me. If there's stuff you're seeing that we could do better, can you please share that with me? And I would say it doesn't mean we're going to implement it straight away, but I'm really open to new ideas. And then people would respect that. They'd love it. So they would share stuff. And I'd be like, okay, that's really good. Let me think about how we could implement that. Like I might not be able to afford to put air conditioning in every single room in the clinic, or to, do. However, I really appreciate that you care enough about the business to let me know, or that you're not appreciating that I've been really blunt lately. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that with me. Because if I'm giving them feedback, then I have to be able to be open to the feedback myself. And I think that means that you're leading with the heart of a servant, the heart of a king, which is one of our values, to really to have that heart-centered leadership when you're leading.
Oh, that's so good. It kind of ties back into what you're saying in the beginning about, bringing them into the process. We're learning together, we're doing this together, and makes everyone more invested in each other and in the success of the business too. I guess that takes us quite nicely into learning styles. If you're learning from each other, I guess we need to, I mean, as someone hiring people, you need to appreciate different types of learning styles. Not everyone's the same. Not everyone's going to like take things on board the same. What would you recommend about learning different learning styles of people and how to navigate that?
Learning styles are great. I'm fascinated by human behavior. So when I learned that this was a thing, I'm like, oh, this is so good. I love it. Because I think the more people feel got and heard and seen and felt, the more people are likely to lean in and have buy-in in your business. And that's something that other places are not going to give potential hires. That's something that you can intentionally go after as a heart-centered practitioner. And I get really excited about that, because if people, like, learning styles is like a superhighway. It's like how we take on board information. So if you can speak into someone's superhighway, they're going to get what you have to say heaps quicker than you keep doing it over and over again and just like, why didn't this person listen to me? It's like, well, maybe they need to hear it in a different way. And so, look, the main communication styles, the main sort of learning styles are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And visual is like they'll use words like, I really see what you're doing there. I noticed, I see. And so you'll find them, like, you can actually listen for the code, because if you're an employer of choice, you'll take the time to listen for the code, and you can listen in their interview, you can listen while they're massaging, you can listen, and it's really helpful to know what's their superhighway of how they take on board information. And because you're really clever, you're listening for that code. So auditory, they're going to be hearing what you're saying. The way that you're talking about that is really helpful for me. I understand what you're saying. Thank you for taking the time to tell me that information. That you're listening for, this person's auditory. And kinesthetic is, I really feel that this is going to be a good place or a good fit for me. I like the way that they might talk about connection, and they'll use more feeling words because they're wired like that, and that's their superhighway. So that's how they take on board information. So part of it, there's two elements. It's number one is that you are going to listen for this code because you're a really clever, amazing, heart-centered therapist. You want to be an employer of choice. Number two is the way that you train is you use all three. Yeah, so you show them how to do it. You tell them how to do it, and you actually do it with them. Tail rolling was an example. So this is what I want it to look like. This is how I want you to do it. I'd tell them, I'd show them. And then I get them to experience it too. Okay, so you're going to traction it back. You're going to roll it up really tight. You're going to put that edge right to the back of the wall. Like the way that we went about it. So if you've got systems and they're just written, they're not necessarily seeing how to do it. If you've got systems that you just verbal and you've got somebody who's highly kinesthetic, they will never understand what you're saying. If you have videos that actually show people what it is you're doing, you often are covering all three, especially if you're using language that has describing feelings. You're going to actually be able to embody all three of those superhighway learning styles for your team. So you know individually what your team are looking for and what they want to hear, what they want to feel, but then you can also use that in your training to intentionally go after all three of those things. And I think that creates a really great culture.
That is fascinating. I didn't actually know too much about this. I've heard the terms, but never really knew about that and never knew how to apply it to management. So that's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. Have you found if you have employees of different styles, do you find yourself adapting constantly to them? How do you navigate that? Maybe if they're between each other, you're trying to navigate conflict or something. Has anything arisen in that regard for you?
Look, I think being able to, like I said, using all three in your training helps, because it's pretty rare that someone's not going to get it if you're telling them, showing them, and they're actually having the experience of it. That is your ultimate way to learn. And even as adult educators, that's how they teach you to teach as well. But what I would find is that I would call it out. So let's say rebooking, for example. People are like, oh, I don't want to rebook because I feel really bossy. We would do rebooking training where they would have to rebook me. We'd talk it through. We'd say the words. We'd, do all that kind of stuff. we'd train through a script and how to overcome objections and all that kind of stuff. And then they'd have to stand there and do it. And what I found was that my team was more likely to rebook than have to do role play with Elicia.
Yeah.
So it's like, you've got two options. Yeah. You either would just do the thing, or
yeah. We pretend
have
to do the thing.
rebook. I don't want to come back in. No, that's an objection. Like, that was way scarier, way more uncomfortable than actually just saying, "Oh, see you again next week." Oh, okay, cool, no worries. Come in. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
So good. I have noticed now that it's almost at the top of the hour. The time has gone so quickly. Thank you so much for all of this info. It's jam-packed full of little gems. Thank you so much again. What I'd like to ask my guests, to put you on the spot a little bit, if someone forgets everything you've said and remembers one idea, concept, thought from the talk, what would you say that is?
I would say that if you are a heart-centered therapist, lead with that to be a great employer, and everything else will fall into place.
Oh, I love it. And Elicia, how can we find you? If someone wants to learn more, find you online, where can we find you?
So our business is called The Health Leader Co. We are across all of the socials, and we have a website. And yeah, more than happy to, would love to get in touch. You can send me a friend request on Facebook. You can email me, you can text me, like whatever, whichever is your favorite channel. Definitely get in touch, because we love to be able to help therapists elevate their practice and amplify what it is that they do in the treatment room.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll pop all of Alicia's how you can find her, all her contacts into this chat for anyone that's interested, but she is part of our community, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions that you didn't have time to ask us today. But thank you so much. I hope we get to see you again soon, and enjoy the conference. I can't wait to hear all about it.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate having me on today. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.